So it's a rack of pork today. Yeah, and we're gonna be doing it out on the Weber Kettle Performer. And it's a really nice sort of holiday dish. When you look at it, it looks a little bit like a ribeye roast, except it's pork there. You've got the bones, you can get that nice exterior and some great flavor from this. There are a couple things we need to get done first before we get this rack of pork out on the grill. First, I want to get a sauce made so that it can sit in the refrigerator and just sort of the flavors come together before we bring that roast back in when it's done and have a taste. Now this is just a modified barbecue sauce. I'm using a raspberry chipotle barbecue sauce from Blues Hog, and to this I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of a brown mustard. Just pick your favorite mustard. In fact, pick your favorite barbecue sauce, but I really like sort of those fruity ones when you're talking about pork. So we're just gonna get 2, maybe 3. And I'm just gonna take a fork and mix this in together here. I always find that mustard goes great with pork, and a lot of people will coat the outside of their pork with sort of a stone ground mustard and then some seasonings, and that works well too. But for today, we're gonna be using this as a sauce at the end. Totally optional, you don't have to put sauce on it, but I really like this on pork. Let's get a little sneak peek. That's gonna be perfect. So I'm gonna cover this up, we're gonna get it in the refrigerator, and then we're gonna move on to getting our seasoning ready for our rack of pork. So our seasoning is starting with a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Next up, a teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/2 teaspoon of a coarsely ground black pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder, just pick your favorite chili powder, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, and a teaspoon of dried black garlic. Now, if you can't get this, just substitute granulated garlic for this, but this is a really nice little different flavor of garlic. It has almost a nuttiness to it. Let's go ahead and mix these all together here. That's looking good. Let's get our pork out here. So here's our rack of pork. You can see the bones back here. And when you're serving it, you can cut it right between the bones for service. It looks really nice. But let's go ahead and get this seasoned up with our rub, our marinade rub with that oil. And I'm just gonna go ahead and pour this on here and push everything out of the bowl. And just start rubbing it all over here. That's looking good. Let's head out to the grill and fire it up. So the Weber Kettle Performer's fired up. I have the Mallory firewall in there under the Mallory cast iron grate, and I have it set up so it's just a slightly larger indirect zone. The firewall you can adjust back and forth to make your zone as big as you want. I have some cherry wood on there, and our target temperature today is gonna be, for the first part, 300 degrees. Once we hit about 90 degrees internal, we're just gonna open the vents and let that really crank up the heat until we get to 140 internal. At that point, the carryover will take us to that safe 145 for whole cuts of pork. So let's go ahead and get our rack of pork on here. All right, let's get our internal temperature probe in. You can see if we lay it here, it goes dead center right there, right about the turn. So we're just gonna push it all the way in dead center. All right, let's get this closed up and get smoking. When we hit that 90 internal, I'll bring you back, we'll open those vents and crank this temperature up. All right, we've been going just about an hour now. We just hit 90 degrees internal. Let's open that bottom vent all the way. Our top vent's already fully open. I've had the bottom vent pretty much closed and just been using the smoke hole to maintain that 300. But now we want to get some more oxygen in there. Let those coals really fire up, get a little bit of a higher heat for the finish to that 140 internal. Normally I would just leave the lid on and let it keep going, but this is a video. Let's take a quick look. That is looking beautiful. Now we're just gonna let that finish. I'll bring you back when we hit that 140 internal. All right, we've been going just a little over an hour and a half now. We just hit 140 internal and it's about to start raining, so I wanna get this off here, get my cameras inside, Once this is inside, I'm going to tent it loosely with foil and let it rest for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll have a taste. Just beat the rain inside. We have our rack of pork here. It has been resting for about 15, probably about 18 minutes actually, I think. I didn't quite make it to 20. And if you look, you see this sort of fat layer as that higher heat kicked in at the end there. We got up to about 450 degrees. That starts to pull back. That's normal. Very crispy, good eating right there. So let's go ahead and we're gonna cut right down the middle, and then I'll cut like a full chop out, and that's what I'm gonna taste. Oh, look at that. I would say we are definitely in juice-a-lunch territory here. Let me move this piece out of the way here. Let's go ahead and cut a full chop out of here. Look at that. That is juice, and juice for days. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and plate this up, and we'll get some of our barbecue sauce, our glaze there, and then we'll have a taste. So let's get some of our raspberry chipotle barbecue sauce here with that mustard added. That just gives it a nice little bit of a, I don't know. I just like to break that sweetness with something that's got a little bit more savory flavor sometimes. Don't have anything against sweet, especially with pork, but I think that mustard's a nice addition. Well, let's dive in and have a taste. Get a little piece from right here. Here we go. I don't know that there's anything more I can say, but oh man, that is good. Combination of that rub, a little bit of that smoke, that cherry smoke. This sauce at the end is a perfect way to finish this. And the rack of pork itself, it's a nice presentation. Like I said, it's similar to a ribeye roast with all the bones showing. It's just a really nice way to enjoy this sort of meal. I wouldn't change a thing.